Wealth is a Choice podcast. Boom.
Let's listen to it. Let's listen to it.
All right, Marty, thanks. This is not, you guys are busy.
Wow.
But I appreciate you taking the time to figure out how we can talk.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it, and welcome back.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I got a handful of questions for you. One of them is workforce. Workforce is a huge part of business, obviously.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think that the workforce in the UP is unique? Is available? What's strong about what you have to offer up here?
First thing I would say is our work ethic. I think it's part of what sets us apart. And as someone that was raised here, you have a mentality that I think really comes from the generations before mine that settled this opportunity. And my family's an example of that. My grandfather immigrated over without knowing anyone to find a better way of life and worked in the mines. And so I think that's just bred in us that if you're going to embrace this life, and it's not for everyone, right? But we are so grateful for all of the beauty that we have, that there comes some conditions with that. And one of those is hard work and shoveling. So that's the first thing I'd say about our workforce is I think they're exceptionally hardworking and we're talented, but there's definitely a challenge around finding workforce at this point. And that's not unique to the Upper Peninsula, but for us, James, it's reflective of really a broader issue, and it's really where our focus is organizationally, and that's what's going on with our population. And the challenge here is not unique necessarily. It's reflective of what you see in many rural communities, but I can offer you some detail to the extent that you want that really reflects what that challenge looks like. And so you had mentioned when we were talking earlier, you graduated in 1990.
Yep.
I graduated from Mescanaba in 1984.
Okay.
My sister graduated in 1975, and she had some 500 students, classmates in her class. They're down to about 160 now, and that's a challenge that is in every school district in the Upper Peninsula, other than Houghton, where they've been relatively static. But the UP since 1970s lost 48% of its K-12 population. Since 2000, we've lost 26% of our K-12 population. And interestingly, though, the population of the UP as a whole is relatively static. It's generally between 300 and 315,000 people.
Okay.
Right now, we're at about 303,000. So it's aged dramatically. In 1970, when I was a kid, it was lousy with kids on the street playing. There was roughly 3 kids 18 and younger to every senior at that point. Now it's at best in communities across the UP 1 to 1.
Okay.
So we're grateful that people want to retire here or take on a second career here later in life, but we have to do something to find opportunity to keep that workforce generation here and attract that workforce generation here.
Do you know how that compares across the nation or Michigan in general?
I don't with any specificity.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I really appreciated about Governor Whitmer making population a priority. I wish maybe a bit more had come out of the Grow Michigan Together Council, but I think with anything, it starts with conversation and awareness. And I think there is great awareness. You hear it with more and more regularity now about what are we going to do relative to Michigan's population. None of it's easy. It's complicated because so much of it is intertwined in terms of you need childcare, you need housing, you need good paying jobs. They all need to come together. And so it's all complicated, needs to move together. But I'm always optimistic and hopeful, and particularly with that statewide focus from policymakers.
Okay. What about a stickiness? I had an interview with Chris Vandermergel about a week or so ago. He's been in manufacturing for 25 years all over the place. And one of the complications is people staying at a job for a while. And I grew up in Manistee, and the paper mill is a huge foothold in the paper mill. And it was a big deal to get a job at the paper mill.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, you got a job at the paper mill and you kept a job at the paper mill. And downstate, for example, one city blends into another city. There's no dividing line. And people can change jobs every other year if they want to.
Yep.
In the Upper Peninsula, is it still that mentality more where you're working somewhere and they tend to stay at a location for a while?
That's changed here too. In
Okay.
fact, I was just out at Billerud, Mead Paper in your youth and in Escanaba, which similarly, that was, a really attractive job to have. It still is, and still pays well and is, great family sustaining jobs. But when I toured there to see the new $125 million investment a month ago that they put into the woodyard, that was one of the things that came up. They used to have hundreds of applications for openings, and now it's maybe a couple dozen. So that's changed dramatically as well in terms of maybe what that looks like, and then is it a career there? And so I think maybe some of that's generational, and so some of that's changed. But yeah, I think we hear that same thing anecdotally here too.
Okay. Well, your point in the very beginning that the UP has a dynamic in the mentality of the people, and it is a phenomenal work ethic. And living up here, there's a lot of entrepreneurship that goes on, and there's a lot of Sisu has said a lot. I don't know if you use that phrase or not.
I'm Italian, but we still embrace it. Yeah.
So there's a lot of you just got to do it. You live in a small town, and it's the town that comes together to get things done.
Yeah.
And you notice even a lot of bakeries are local. A lot of times the food and the bread and things like that they're not coming from some other state, some other place. They're coming from a bakery or some shop in town that's making and producing something.
Yeah, it's a destination. You're here intentionally.
Yeah.
We're fortunate. John Bacon from Ann Arbor, nationally renowned author, 6 or 7 books on the New York Times bestseller list, is coming up to speak next week.
Okay.
And so that'll be part of his message. Is it's not easy, but we don't want it to be easy. You can succeed here with that grit, determination, but you have to want to embrace winter and some of the other challenges, like being a bit isolated geographically. We think that works to our advantage.
Yeah, I noticed that on your website. You don't hide the winter.
No,
it is what it is. Embrace it.
Yeah.
This is something you like. Yeah. Come on.
Now this winter was, tough even by our standards, but lots to love about it.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to love about it.
Yeah, so for sure.
So I live downstate now, but years ago, living up here, my favorite season was fall. I love fall. My second favorite season was winter. My third was summer, and my fourth was spring.
Yeah.
It was always in that order.
Yeah.
Now living downstate, I don't know how I'd order. I think it'd be fall, summer, May. I don't even know where I'd put winter. It might be toward the end because there's not a lot to do.
That's right.
You get a lot of chilly temperature, but it doesn't stick. So you don't get to get your roots involved in sports, outside sports.
Yeah.
You just kind of coming and going. I don't really like it that much.
That's right.
Up here you've got it and you can use it, and there's a lot of fun to be had.
There is, and again, not everyone is acclimated to winter sports, right? So I understand that, but gosh, if you love the outdoors and the beauty that's alongside that, you can embrace winter and really thrive, and that's part of what the message has to be.
Yeah.
So
Hogback Mountain is like one gigantic marshmallow in the wintertime. It's just so much snow, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. This year with 300 inches on the ground, in the Keweenaw, it got your attention for sure. It was interesting to see as you drove through some streets that were narrowed to one way because of how much snow there was. But again, from our perspective, it's really something to celebrate, and we've I think gotten better at that. The UP 200.
The dog sledding.
Isn't
that a riot? Have you been on a dog sled?
I have not. I got a good friend actually who worked with me in Lansing. And then has embraced it so much, he brought a team and now lives part-time in Newberry.
Yeah. Try it, Marty. It's pretty cool.
So one day.
We did it over in McMillan when my boys were younger. We did it a couple times, and that was fun.
Yeah.
That's an operation, too, by the way.
Yeah.
You got these dogs.
We've referred some people over there.
Yeah. You take care of the dogs all year long. That's a big operation to run a dog sled, but it's fun.
Yeah, good. Well, I'll put it on the to-do list.
I haven't seen the UP 200 yet. I've had some friends that have seen it, and it's quite a sight. I've seen the setup and the after effects, but I've never actually seen the race.
One of the things, it also allows us an opportunity to do is to build relationships with policymakers, because it's really been embraced by Lansing as an opportunity to come up and maybe get a better understanding of the opportunity and challenges that are taking place here. So we're really grateful for that. We'll see anywhere from 15 to 30 different policymakers and administrators in for that event. And so that's been a really nice opportunity for us to then develop relationships with that group of policymakers that many here wouldn't have an opportunity to do otherwise.
So legislators from other districts?
Yeah, from all over the state.
That helps.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
Yep. There's just unique opportunities here as well, right? And so getting them an opportunity to see maybe Eagle Mine or Cliffs and what we do, or better understand there's an acute need or challenge right now around energy. So getting that opportunity to have firsthand conversations is really helpful.
Yeah, districts are put together by population size.
Correct.
And so, the first district is all the way down to Detroit.
Detroit,
The last district's over in, the western part of the
Right.
UP going over to Ironwood and Marinette. And the people up here, they've got a district that's this big.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
downstate it might be like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
now,
it's good to get them up here, because otherwise, how would they know?
And now with how the districts were reconfigured in the Upper Peninsula anyway, you've got the 108th district, which used to be very compact for a UP district, Delta Dickinson, Menominee. It now stretches from Menominee, so the Wisconsin border, all the way to Sault Ste. Marie, so the Canadian border. So it's the Wisconsin-Canada district, essentially. So that's probably 180 miles of district long.
Yeah.
So it's entirely different challenge than what they have.
Years ago, I worked up here in Escanaba, in the home office down by Detroit. Sent me up a package and said, "Hey, next time you see the guys at the Sioux, can you get it to them?" Like, you guys not understanding what's going on here.
They don't.
I'm not going to go see the guys at the Sioux tomorrow.
Yeah, it's not remotely on my way.
No.
Yeah.
That bike ride I do, it's 1,200 miles.
Right.
Around the perimeter of the UP,
Right.
1,200 miles. So, okay, that seems kind of far. But you look at it on a map, it's the same distance as Detroit to Disney World.
Yeah.
The UP has got some area.
And that's one of the facts that we'll talk a lot about is, if you're in the western side of the UP, you're closer to 5 other state capitals than you are to Lansing.
Yeah.
So it just gives you some perspective of how far we are and what part of that challenge is to make sure that we have voice.
Yep.
So
Awesome.
and that's part of what we look to do organizationally. Incidentally, speaking of your bike ride, thank you so much for that. We appreciate the fact that you bring in others to kind of celebrate what that landscape looks like.
Yeah,
So,
they come from all over
Yeah.
the country.
Yeah.
And very interesting people that are riding
Yeah.
this, so it's fun to spend time with them on a bike.
When you look at like the Ore to Shore, and it's part of the reason I'm so optimistic about what the future of the UP looks like, but they have some 2,500 participants from over 30 states.
It's known as one of
Yes.
the big rides.
Yeah. So again, it just speaks to what the opportunity looks like if we can get the rest of the building blocks in place. So people want to embrace that life again. If outdoor recreation opportunity in particular is for you, you look what Bentonville did, right?
Yeah.
They intentionally built that out for the executives of the Walmart Corporation. And if they can have such success with that kind of artificial creation, imagine what the opportunity for us should look like here.
Yeah. And people are drawn to these types of experiences. I think, maybe I'm optimistic, but I think AI is going to somehow draw us closer to humanity, where we want more human experiences, I think. Maybe I'll be wrong in this, we'll see. But I'm seeing with the younger generation, they're embracing vinyl. They're embracing, what are those cameras that instantly you hit the button?
Yeah, Polaroid.
Yeah, Polaroid.
Yeah.
All this stuff, but they're embracing activities and arts. And you guys do focus a lot on arts. I think on your site it says Taylor Swift might not come, but, which is kind of funny. But there is so much arts here. I was down at Black Rocks the other day, and there's all these singers coming up, and they're fantastic. Phenomenal artists.
Yeah.
There's a lot of art going on in the Upper Peninsula. A lot of talent.
There is. And again, I don't think you necessarily appreciate it unless and until you're here. And that's part of what we've been trying to do is celebrate that.
Yeah.
Governor Snyder was up speaking last year and was asked as part of that by someone in the audience at an event we put on, what's the one thing that we could do to advance opportunity here? He said, market the opportunity. got to get out and not be so Midwestern modest and really talk about what there is here and what that opportunity looks like and how you celebrate it.
So I'm always curious what it takes to get a business to move here. So my son goes to a school down in North Carolina, and so maybe it's like the lizard brain. I got a son down there. I hear North Carolina. I'm aware of it, but I hear about this company started there in North Carolina. And I'm always curious of what does it take? I know Snyder flew all over the world trying to attract people to, what does the UP do, or how does a business come here? How do they decide to come here? Who are you talking to? Where do you go?
So for us, it's not so much about attraction. It's more about how do you take advantage of the natural resource opportunities here, and additionally, how do you take advantage of growing business that's here, and then where part of our focus has really been is how do you grow entrepreneurship and innovation opportunity here. And as you know, James, we punch way above our weight class with regard to the higher education assets that we have. For a rural region to have the higher education assets that we have is really unique in terms of where we're positioned, including Michigan Tech, which is an R1 research institution now, right alongside Wayne State, Michigan State in Michigan. And there's, I think, 186 in the country, but of those 186, only 3 are in rural-facing communities. So it's really exclusive company that Michigan Tech is in, and we don't always appreciate just how special that university is. But by virtue of that, we have a real opportunity around entrepreneurship and innovation, and that's part of what we've tried to lean into. And more significantly, the smart zones that we're blessed with have tried to lean into. So again, we're blessed to have 3 smart zones, which really are charged with kind of spinning up those types of business opportunities. So
what does a smart zone mean?
It's essentially an incubator for technology companies. So if you've got an idea, they will try to take that idea and walk with you to stand that up into a business.
Okay.
So you're likely familiar, at least by name, with Orbian. So that would be an example of a company that worked alongside the MTech Smart Zone in Houghton and came from an idea on the back of a napkin, as I've heard Brad King explain it, into a sophisticated, certainly nationally, if not internationally respected, satellite thruster company. So they essentially make thrusters that position satellites to precise locations in space.
Wow.
So, now 70 or 80 literal rocket scientists working in Houghton for that company. And
wow.
I love, incidentally, Brad King's explanation, is I've heard him say it, and is maybe I would tell it in my own words. He was being derided a bit by those in Silicon Valley about what in the hell are you doing having a space technology company in Houghton, Michigan in the Upper Peninsula? And his answer was just fantastic. And he said, I'm as close to outer space as you are, but I get to live in God's country.
Yeah.
So, I think that really speaks to why those types of opportunities can work here. And so it's really not an attraction play. We do see it on occasion, but it's really more about growing your own and then leaning into those assets that we have to develop opportunity.
Okay. So the smart zone, is it something that's inviting people, innovation to come in and collaborate and discuss ideas?
Exactly. Yep. So if you've got just a rough idea, they'll help you work through it. If you've got a pretty advanced idea, they will then walk you through the customer discovery side, ensuring that you have a patent on it to protect the idea, ensuring that you've got a legal team alongside you, and then that you're looking for some early capital to help then invest into that company and get it launched. So all the pieces that are necessary to help you stand that idea up into a company.
How do people start the process from their end?
Just reach out. Yeah. If you Google it, you'll see, depending on what part of the Upper Peninsula you're in. Like I say, west to east, it's all covered, but you'll see the MTech Smart Zone, the Innovate Marquette Smart Zone, and Headwaters over in the Sioux.
Okay. I love that stuff.
Yeah, me too. And one of the things we're super blessed with here organizationally, we're only one of two in the state, but we've got an economic development seed fund. So it's called the Michigan Outdoor Innovation Fund. It's led by Jim Baker and Jim Tanzillo for us. It's a $5.6 million seed fund that is invested now, made 40 investments into 23 technology companies that are in the outdoor recreation space. So that was a very intentional choice for us in terms of why that sector, because it fits the area, right? And so we want to seed opportunities with those funds that are really consistent with what growth opportunity looks like here. So that fund now is a little over 2 years old for us and been a great success. And so we're excited to see where it goes. We one of the recent investments we made was into two Michigan State students who developed a company called Brace, which interestingly enough is technology embedded in shoelaces so that they don't become untied.
Yeah.
So they were just on Shark Tank,
Yeah.
had a successful offer there, and so it's kind of fun to see.
Yeah,
where all that
I
leads.
saw their story.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
So fun stuff.
Untied shoelaces, I'm a runner. It's annoying.
You know the importance.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I think the real interest is on the professional level and what that means for
Yeah.
those athletes. So
Yeah.
we're excited by it.
So I love that people have a place to go to figure out how to take an idea and
Yeah.
see if it can become reality. There's this guy, I think his name was Dan Poynter. He's like the godfather of independent book writing.
Oh.
But one of his quotes, which I absolutely love, is "Don't die with a book still inside you." I love that.
It's great.
quote. Yeah,
My
and
mother's a
there's-
librarian, so
yeah.
I could especially appreciate that.
There's so many ideas that people have that they don't know how. They don't know if they're viable. They don't know if they're, if it could work. Is
That's
it
right.
just a daydream? And they could have this daydream for 10, 20 years, and it never emerges.
That's right.
And you guys are developing a platform to let that come out.
Yeah.
I was in Manistee on Tuesday for a school event we've been doing for 3 years called Learn It, Pitch It.
Okay.
And it's where students have ideas. They work with people for 10 weeks to develop the ideas, and then they pitch it to us on a panel, and we award out some money to them to go do it. But these are young. Some of them are middle schoolers, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. The ideas that people have.
Right.
One kid had this idea with AI, and I'm like, AI's not been around for 20 years for you to get this intelligent about it. You know what I mean? It's incredible.
It's fun.
There is phenomenal ideas and intelligence scattered all over the place, untapped.
Absolutely.
And you guys are providing a platform to help that come out.
Well, it's not, it's a collective system here, and that's, I think, part of what we're really fortunate about. You've got partners that kind of span the landscape that work really well together, and I think that's also one of the unique assets that we have is, everybody's certainly concerned about their own community, but there is definitely a spirit of cooperation and partnership.
So on the community landmass, the UP is huge. How do you have an effort, or how do you have an effort on making sure that all of the UP is getting jobs, is having opportunity? There's areas, actually, this little thing, I've been meeting with some governor candidates and looking at the map, and this is like, the darker, the blue, the not as favorable, the income level. And the UP's got some brighter blue spots, and it's not all in Marquette. Iron Mountain's pretty strong. There's different areas. Obviously, Houghton with the college, they're pretty strong. There's different areas. Is that a focus you guys have, is making sure that all of the UP, knowing where the resources are in all of the UP? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's hard, right? To your point, it's a big area. It's bigger than 9 states.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about that first House district in downtown Detroit and how compact it is, you're able, of course, you have resources there, and to devote more attention to an area that's so constrained geographically. We do our best. Our mission says, and we all believe it, and we're passionate about it. We'll chase opportunity and drive prosperity anywhere in the Upper Peninsula.
Okay.
For better or worse, unfortunately, a lot of our time and attention is spent in the bigger population centers. Communities like Ontonagon, Ironwood, Newberry, they're starved for opportunity. and we'll chase that opportunity alongside them. But Ontonagon just had its hospital close 2 years ago.
Yep.
It's really hard to have a community when you don't have a hospital.
Yep.
And so we're really conscious of that and look for opportunity. It's part of the reason I've spent in this position more time on a project in Ironwood than anywhere else.
Okay.
It's 380 jobs that pay $90,000 to $110,000 a year on average. And so how do we make sure a community in Ironwood that just lost its maternity ward has opportunity?
Yeah.
And so
That's a huge job over there.
huge, yeah.
Wow.
And so $425 million investment.
Wow.
But it's not without some contention. It's well embraced by the local community. It's very much desired, and it's very much desired because they know it's consistent with their past. It's a mining opportunity, and they know it's really the future. And so, as you well appreciate, going around the circumference of the Upper Peninsula regularly, there is so much beauty and incredible treasure that is our natural resources. But from our perspective, an Eagle Mine, we believe, proves this. You can live in harmony between economic development opportunity and the economy and our environment. And so we're sensitive to that. We want to be good stewards of that. But we're natural resources, the natural resource economy is today. We definitely believe there's an intersection between the two that works really well.
Ontonagon, Connie's is a cafe there.
Yeah.
One of my favorites in the whole state. That thing is beautiful. Sandwiches,
Yeah.
coffee. I love Connie's and Ontonagon.
Well, you
That's
probably
a
know
gem.
more hidden gems than I do with the nature of your eye.
Yeah. And if I lived in Ironwood, I would ride my bike from Ironwood down the Iron Bale Trail, then through the Porkies every single weekend.
Yeah.
What a beautiful ride that is.
Yeah. It's a gorgeous area and it's special. And we want to preserve that, right? For sure. But we also have to find economic opportunity here because, as we started with, if we don't have it, we're going to continue to age. And at some point, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Ontonagon shows you that. Ontonagon has lost 4 of every 5 kids since 1970. 80% of its K-12 population is gone.
Yeah.
You can't sustain a community on that. So I appreciate those that are concerned about the environment and the impact. We want to be mindful of that and to have conversations around that. But again, Eagle Mine shows that indeed there is a really fair balance that can happen. And interestingly enough, this is the 3rd iteration of my career. Never saw it coming. In the middle stop, I worked on staff in the legislature. And so the very first thing that I touched was actually what's called Part 632 regulations, which regulate the Eagle Mine. And what was really interesting about that is in 2004, the environmental community, the business community, regulators, policymakers came together to say, how do we, because there were no standards at the time, how do we ensure that the environment is protected but permit the opportunity? And all of those stakeholders, and there were probably 30 to 40 around the table, came together in agreement, and that led to unanimous passage of legislation that should be particularly contentious. So the Sierra Clubs of the world, right alongside the manufacturers, all agreed on what that language looked like and said, if you can meet these standards, you can mine safely in the state. So Governor Granholm at the time, after a passage of 110 to nothing in the House, 38 to nothing in the Senate, signed that legislation and said essentially, these are among the most stringent mining standards in the world.
Wow.
So why wouldn't we want that type of opportunity here with those safeguards in place?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Mining is a reality that, it's a reality.
And it's only been brought home in today's world, right?
Yeah.
Since COVID, and we see what's going on the supply side and what that means to advance manufacturing technology and defense.
Yep.
And so, do we really want to be beholden to other countries that don't share our best interests?
Yeah. The Eagle Mine, I have very limited experience with it, but by experience that I do have with it is phenomenal. They communicate with us prior to the bike ride. They're so gracious with their trucks and consciously aware of the timing that we're going to be going through, because we go right past Eagle Mine. We have a water stop right at the entrance of the Eagle Mine.
Okay.
We come up from what I call the hump of the UP from Lance, and we come up through all that Ford Road, AAA Road, all that stuff, and people are surprised that we do it, because it's remote back there. We see wolves and moose and all kinds of animals. But going that way keeps us off of US 41.
Right.
So it's it's one of my favorite days, very remote. But, so I've recently published an article regarding Biden and Trump's national security strategies. And Biden's in 2022 and Trump's in 2025. And I read both of them and went through and looked for the differences and the similarities, and shockingly, the similarities are all over the place. What they agree on far outweighs what they disagree on in terms of priorities. They hardly disagree on anything at all. How they go about implementing change was dramatically different between the two. But and what this tells me is, regardless of who's in office, especially since COVID and then the war in Ukraine, we've recognized these realities of supply chain. So what's paramount in both documents is reshoring manufacturing to our country. And whether it's through a tariff or something else, there's clearly going to be pressure to reshore a lot of our supply chains. And I think you guys embrace that. When I go to your website, I can see that language in there. Reshoring, bringing manufacturing. And some of the videos that you have going on, like, I'd like to go work there. You know, there's this, I love wood, you know, and there's this mill and cutting all these gigantic boards. So it seems like you're embracing that you recognize we need more supply chains here in our country. It's a reality.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You know, the UP was really built on that, you know, forestry and mining. And it's certainly a different time. It's not my grandfather's mine that I mentioned he came over and worked in. And so that's part of the reason I'm so excited about the future of the Upper Peninsula, is because there is absolutely a recognition of that now. I think nationally, if not more broadly, that we have to take some ownership and control of our own destiny, because we've seen the challenge now of China owning all of these critical minerals, or them being mined elsewhere and being dependent upon them for pharmaceutical needs. And so how do we ensure that opportunity is here nationally? And the Upper Peninsula is sitting on tremendous opportunity in that respect. You know, Eagle Mine now being owned by Talon in a unique partnership there. Talon, an exploration company, and Lundin, a mining company, now being married. What that opportunity looks like. Copperwood over in the Ironwood area, Wakefield, the Back 40 project in Stevenson. We are rich with these minerals, and so it's part of the reason I'm so bullish about our future. And then I am no subject matter expert around it whatsoever, but continue to hear in Governor Whitmer in, I think, January, February, signed an administrative order looking to put real insight around the opportunity of geologic hydrogen. And the UP is rich in geologic hydrogen. So she signed an executive order that the state needs to better understand, how do you regulate it? What are the legal kind of parameters that need to surround it? And then how do you commercialize it? So, you know, things like that, I think, bode really well for our future.
How do people get exposure to understand, like, mining can be, you know, as polarizing as talking about wolves, you know what I mean? There's, people hate them or love them, but how do people get better educated about that the mining, like you said, it's not our grandparents' mines. How do they see it? How do they understand?
That's a great question. You know, I don't know that I have a great answer for the broader public. Of course, what you see online is hard to maybe discern what's accurate and what's not these days. But one of the things I will say that I'm really appreciative of is the community stewardship that those natural resource companies offer locally. So when we have a policymaker in town, Cliffs will frequently offer opportunities for a policymaker to come in and see it and understand it firsthand. Same with Eagle Mine. And I think that goes a long way in helping educate. So it's unfortunate you can't just have doors open so that the broader community can come in.
Yeah.
Of course, you
there's
never
no like guided
anything.
tours going on in a mine.
So it's unfortunate, but there is that opportunity to educate the policymakers then, who, as you point out, represent 90,000 people or 270,000 people. So that's been a great help for us, and part of the reason I mentioned the UP 200 has been so helpful is to really put ears and eyes on the ground to see it and understand it.
Yep. Well, we all love the environment, and the UP knows that more than any other area. So you're certainly, it's in your best interest long term to always protect it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And I had a dear friend of mine who eventually ran for the state house and was state senator, came out of the logging industry, and that's what he used to say all the time is, if anyone wants to sustain this, it's me. My family is dependent upon it.
Yep.
So, and I think that's lost in the conversation too often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a capacity, workforce capacity? Is there any business you guys can't attract or hold? Is there a sweet spot you're looking for companies to come in?
It in part depends on the community, Little Wallace, Michigan, which is in between like Powers and Menominee, as you know, they just had a company relocate. So I had mentioned we don't do attraction a lot, but one of those success stories was a company called Menco that just relocated to Wallace with 20 jobs. Well, 20 jobs in Little Wallace, Michigan, and Menominee County, Michigan, that's a big deal.
It is.
And so there's certainly limitations in terms of what that looks like. When Amazon was out with its H2Q project or whatever, that's not realistic whatsoever, nor do we want it, right? So it's got to be, I think, consistent with the fabric of the community as well. But yeah, there's certainly in a rural region like ours, practical realities to what that looks like. And part of that challenge is logistics, right? And one thing we haven't talked about yet, James, not everybody gets around as well as you do by bike, but there has to be an easier way in and an easier way out, or more reliable way in and a more reliable way out with air service. That's a challenge we hear a lot about. Northern, and I hadn't given it a lot of thought before I took this position, Northern opened a cybersecurity center back in 2019, and there was 8 people from all around the country coming in to celebrate that. And 7 of the 8, unprompted, brought up, this is a great opportunity and it's got significant potential, but you need to figure a way to get in and out of the airport here more readily, especially in the winter. So that's a challenge for us that's been front of mind, and one that our friends at the Lake Superior Community Partnership have been working to solve really hard. And United now just added 3 lines of service this summer. So that's a huge win. Delta had added a line another line over to Minneapolis last year. So that's been part of intentional focus for us as well, because business class travelers in particular can't have a 3-day trip to the Upper Peninsula if it's truly going to be effective. So, yeah.
I hear more people flying in and out of Marquette.
Yeah, that's true.
It's happening.
Yeah. And we've gone down and we looked at Traverse City, we looked at Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids, if you haven't been there, recently, that Ford Airport is just spectacular. And those were utilitarian airports not that long ago. And so, I think it speaks well to what that opportunity here could look like. So
I've got one of my best friends from college. He grew up in Bloomfield, but he moved down to South Carolina a number of years ago. So he told me, just last week, he's coming up to Marquette with a vacation with some of his Charleston, South Carolina buddies and their wives, husbands and wives are coming. But so they're flying into Traverse City, they're spending some time there, they're driving around, they come up to Marquette, and then they're going to fly out of Marquette and go back down to South Carolina. Really fired up about it. I'm going to come up here and spend the weekend with them,
good.
Obviously.
Yeah,
but I do hear about more and more people flying in and out of Marquette. Which, by the way, was an Air Force base. That thing can handle any size plane, I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the concrete, I hear how thick the concrete is there. It's a really good runway.
Yeah. Well, it landed, Air Force One not that long ago.
Yeah.
So, it's 12,000-foot runway. I think it's been shortened out to 10,000 feet. But, yeah, it is. It's got all the necessary infrastructure. And so, We just have to figure out, how can we maybe provide some additional passenger comforts and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How many airports would people fly in and out of in the UP? There's one in Escanaba, one in Marquette, Houghton I hear about. What
6.
What other ones? 6?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Yeah. Ironwood, Houghton, Marquette, Iron Mountain, Escanaba, Sioux.
Okay. All right. More on the west than the east, I guess, but...
Yeah, and that's also part of our challenge in a few different respects, right? The actual, because it is so big geographically, the Sioux gets all of their news and information from below the bridge.
Yeah.
And the central and western part of the Upper Peninsula gets its information and naturally gravitates to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And so you see that in sports affiliations and elsewhere. And so
Manistee was kind of the dividing line
that's
between
exactly right.
Lions and Packers. Yeah,
right, absolutely. Yeah.
About 50-50. By the time you get to Escanaba, it was Packers.
Packers.
Yeah. I got one more question for you, but is there anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to talk about?
I would just reiterate what I said, James. I really appreciate people like you who want to celebrate the Upper Peninsula and help us to showcase all of its value and virtue. And so, what you do, and I think we talked early on when you started down this road, or at least it was early on when I settled into this role. And then, of course, Amy Berglund with our team's been alongside you in a few respects, trying to help wherever we can. But I just so appreciate the investment that you're making of yourself into our communities, and that you're bringing other people up and exposing them to what the Upper Peninsula truly does look like. So I just want to say thank you for all that you do.
We're having fun, and the UP has embraced it, and which is phenomenal. And the UP biking, I started it to raise awareness of safe biking in the UP. There's 20 bike to vehicle accidents a year in the entire Upper Peninsula. There's 1,200 downstate.
Oh, wow.
And it's been consistent like that for a long time.
Interesting.
I've read every police report in the last 15 years of every accident that took place in the UP. And just yesterday, I was on the Superior Region safety call with MDOT and DNR and partners around the entire Upper Peninsula, the EDCs.
Yeah.
And we meet on a regular basis and talk about each of these accidents and incidents and where they happen and how they could be avoided and what can make things even safer. To me, it's getting in and out of towns and then the space between, I call it. Like, how do you get people from one community to another, and how do you get people in and out of every town as safe as possible? So the effort is phenomenal, and this is probably, I trust me, I searched the data. I cannot find a region that has a lower accident incident than the UP anywhere in the nation. I can't say this is definitively the safest place to ride your bike, but I can't find a better one.
Well, that's great. And as I mentioned, I've got a son-in-law who's just an avid cyclist, and so he has the passion right alongside you.
Yeah.
He's a Chicago guy, but loves to ride up here. And,
hopefully I'll get to ride with him someday.
So that'd be great. Yeah.
So the name of this podcast is
Wealth is a choice. Boom.
And wealth means a lot of things to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It immediately you think of money when you think of wealth, but it's health, it's family, it's community, it's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So then, whatever wealth means to you at this moment, do you think that wealth is a choice?
I do. I think, like so many things, it's a choice. Starting with an outlook, and I think that's maybe most important is I think we've culturally, in many respects, lost sight of just how wealthy we are in so many respects. We are richly blessed as individuals and as a nation, even in what is a really difficult moment for many and for us institutionally, politically. But I absolutely believe that we can make choices every day that leads to more fulfilling and rich lives. And if you've had any health challenges, or you've seen people, loved ones that have had health challenges, I think you realize really how quickly, how blessed you are if you have that. And so then around that, I think everything else is a choice. I've lost a couple dear friends and family members over the course of the last 5 years that have just reinforced that. So, all of us have trying times and circumstances for sure. It's not always easy. You know, I'd mentioned to you Governor Snyder's coming up next week. And one of the things I just loved about him was that relentless, positive outlook. You could agree or disagree with his politics and, you know, disagree with him on some of those policy initiatives. But I just think that's a refreshing perspective, particularly in today's world. So absolutely think it's a choice, and don't always succeed myself, but try to be focused on my blessings.
Consciously looking to find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thanks, Marty.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for coming up.
I appreciate it.
All right, be well.
Ta-da.